Let us begin. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm Isha, this is Adventure with Isha. I've been traveling for about 8 years, pretty much non-stop since 2017, and I've come to the conclusion that what the world needs more than ever is radical love, which starts with radical self-love, and then once you have that radical self-love, it's much easier to love everybody else around you. Right now, I'm doing a huge series just about Myers-Briggs personality types, where I describe each of the 16 personalities so that you can understand yourself better, but also so that you can understand other people better. So far, I've done videos on all of the NF types, so the ENFJ, the INFJ, the ENFP, and the INFP. I've also done a video on the ENTP, and today's video is going to be about the INTP, so the close cousin of the ENTP. If you are not familiar with the Myers-Briggs system, I've done 2 introductory videos for you. The first one is about the 4 letters. If you do these tests, usually you get results that's 4 letters, so ENTP, INTJ, ISFJ, something like that. Those 4 letters give you a basic overview of the person, but that's not really how to use Myers-Briggs accurately. To understand the MBTI theory properly, you have to understand the cognitive functions. So I've done a second video describing the cognitive functions and what they each mean. So you can check out the video about cognitive functions on my channel as well. Today's video is going to be about the INTP. One of my favorites, again, this is a highly underrated personality type. Many people, I think, misunderstand INTPs, but that's mostly because they're at home. And so we don't often meet INTPs out in the wild. I mean, this is a stereotype of an INTP. So I'm going to go through the INTP cognitive functions. I'm going to talk about the INTP loop that they get into when they are stressed out, and also talk about how they can get out of that loop. And finally, I'm going to talk about the INTP grip state. So when they get stuck in that inferior function. The INTP cognitive function stack starts with TI, introverted thinking. So that's first. Then they've got extroverted intuition, followed by introverted sensing, followed by extroverted feeling. So the function stack looks like this: TINE, SIFE. What does that mean? So TI is this highly logical, analytical function, introverted thinking. It's an introverted function, so it's personal to the individual INTP. So INTPs lead with this highly personal system of logic that makes sense to them. It's arbitrary, it's introverted. So it's very much catered to each individual INTP. If something doesn't make logical sense to an INTP, they are not likely to engage with it at all. It's an analytical function, so it's constantly worrying, constantly trying to make sense of things and trying to think about how you do something well. This is supported by their second function, extroverted intuition, so NE. And NE is the function associated with seeing possibilities, generating ideas, making intuitive connections between different topics. So INTPs have an extremely analytical and intuitive brain, very similar to the ENTP. The difference here is that INTPs lead with their logic. They lead with this highly logical first function. Very logical beings, INTPs. Their third function, so slightly weaker, is introverted sensing, which is all about their personal sensory surroundings and where their stuff is, how organized they are in their physical world, how much they are in reality with their senses, essentially. So it's third, so it's not as strong as the first 2 functions. SI is also a function associated with details, facts and details. So because it's third after their intuitive function, they're less likely to care about facts and details as they are about overarching intuitive concepts. SI is also the function associated with past experiences. Their last function is extroverted feeling. This is the thing that's going to trip up an INTP from a young age until they finally become conscious of it in their 30s or 40s. So extroverted feeling is the function associated with other people's feelings. How is everybody else feeling what is the temperature of the room in terms of emotions. INTPs really struggle with that, which is where their stereotype comes from, as being slightly socially awkward people, although this isn't the case for all INTPs. As I've said in almost every video now, these personality groups are not supposed to box you into the personality. What I'm not saying is that INTPs can't tune into other people's emotions. Of course they can. Everybody can do everything. All Myers-Briggs theory tells you is what your brain does naturally, what your preferred functions are. So what is it that you do without thinking? INTPs, to be socially attuned to other people's emotions, usually have to put a bit of effort into it. Or otherwise, it's something to do with their nurture. I know an INTP, for example, who has been in social situations for work a lot and therefore has had to engage that FE function a lot more than your average INTP. And therefore, he was very unstereotypical in that way because he was very good with social situations. FE is also the function associated with wanting harmony for the whole group and wanting to connect with people on a feelings-based level. INTPs, just like IP types in general, tend to be quite individualistic, and that comes from them having that TI at the front. They lead with their own personal logic. And the FE, which is the polar opposite of TI, is the whole group, the emotional temperature of the whole group. And so INTPs are less inclined to be group oriented and much more individualistic in their approach to life. So that's the INTP function stack. Now let's look at what happens to INTPs when they are stressed out. When INTPs are stressed out, they go into what's known as the TiSi loop. Just like all the other personalities, they will get stuck in this loop where they go from the first function to the third function, back to the first function, back to the third function. They skip that all-important second auxiliary function. So INTPs go from being highly analytical and logical to focusing on details and the past and their sensory surroundings, and back to analyzing, and then back to the past and details, and it's all introverted. So it's that both of their introverted functions in a loop. So what that looks like for an INTP is getting stuck over analyzing past events, or getting stuck into details, being really stuck trying to analyze certain details. They can become overly critical of themselves, and they can get completely paralyzed in this analytical state. And because they're stuck in these introverted functions, where they're going from introverted thinking to introverted sensing, they're not getting any external input, and they end up stuck in this introverted loop. Both of these introverted functions are passive. They tend to be they're just kind of on their own, ruminating, and therefore they also end up not really taking action. To break this loop, then, if you're an INTP and you're stuck in this kind of TISI loop over and over again, engage your second function, engage that NE function. NE is all about possibilities. It's a very optimistic function. It's a function associated with exploration. And so what INTPs can do is speak to somebody who's got NE as their dominant function, so an ENTP or an ENFP, and get some outside input to just explore ideas without being committed to a particular outcome. So yeah, just like all the other types, if you are stuck in this introverted loop, it's an I type. So the solution for I types when they're stuck in these loops is to go outwards, engage your second function, and start exploring new ideas, new possibilities. When INTPs are extremely stressed out, this is when they are struck by some external factor of stress where they're really not themselves. This often means that they are in something called the FE grip. Grip state is when you are stuck in that fourth function, which for an INTP is FE. extroverted feeling. So INTPs suddenly start to care a lot more about what other people are feeling. They become people pleasers. They might have these emotional outbursts at the people around them because they're hyper vigilant. They're hyper aware of how everybody is feeling. When it's FE grip, it's using FE but in an unhealthy way. So they become people pleasers. They're looking for validation. They harbor resentment. They might go down shame spirals. They become uncharacteristically needy. They might feel misunderstood, very socially awkward. So this is where kind of the social awkwardness comes from as well for an INTP, but this is in a particularly upsetting and stressful state. If you are in the grip state as an INTP, the important thing to do is identify your source of stress and get rid of it as quickly as you can, because then you can go back to being your beautiful, inquisitive, highly logical, individualistic selves. So INTPs, they absorb information like sponges, but they don't always do anything with that information initially because they're so focused on analyzing it. They're so focused on understanding it and analyzing it and drawing in new ideas to analyze it even more that they don't often put into action some of the things that they find out. INTPs can be a little perfectionistic in that way. That's what that TI function does. It's so analytical that they don't always get stuff done, which is the TE function. So INTPs set into motion some of those brilliant ideas you've got, reconnect with your curiosity, let go of any feeling of perfectionism, and then let your process flow freely. If you want to be a well-rounded INTP, you want to look after those third and fourth functions as well. So having a sense of where your things are and a better relationship with your sensory environment, your physical surroundings, and also tuning into other people's feelings. Even in their healthiest states, INTPs might not be the best people at reading other people's feelings, but a well-rounded INTP is able to engage that inferior function in a healthy way to create harmony whilst they do their brilliant problem solving with their analytical mind. If you are an INTP, let me know in the comments if I nailed it. Let me know in the comments if this description actually rings true for you. Or if you know an INTP, maybe this video will help you understand INTPs better. INTPs can be very misunderstood individuals. So I think, especially with videos like these ones about types that aren't often in the spotlight, I think it's kind of nice for me to do these videos on their behalf so that INTPs feel a little bit more seen as well. So that's it on the INTP today. I am currently also doing some research where I'm dating all the different Myers-Briggs types. I have a couple of data points for the INTP, so that video is coming as well, the relationship between an ENFP and an INTP and what that might look like. And then I'm also going to branch out and do videos about relationship dynamics between different types, not just an ENFP, but what it might be like as an INFP to date an INTP, for example. So stay tuned for those videos. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a like if you found it useful. Share it with the INTPs in your life. I'm sure they'd love to be seen. And remember, the whole point of this channel is to spread radical love for yourself and radical love for everybody around you, because I think we desperately need that right now. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Remember to embody love for yourself and for everyone else. I'm just gonna do some thumbnails. Oh, I know, I'll do this thumbnail. What?